Hello everyone. My name is Peter. Welcome to the true stories being shared here. Please sit back and listen to today's story. Fiancée comes out as bisexual after attending a wedding alone. Betty, 27F, and I, 30M, got engaged in January after dating for a few years. Our plan was to get married next year after we saved up enough money for the wedding. Not long after getting engaged, we moved in together at the end of January. In May, Betty served as a bridesmaid for one of her friends, and I couldn't attend because of work and the fact that it was a 5-day trip. Betty had a great time reconnecting with some old friends, but a few weeks after she returned, she became withdrawn and distant. I was relieved when she scheduled an appointment with a therapist because she still hadn't opened up to me about what was bothering her. After about 5 or 6 sessions, one Saturday morning, she asked me to sit down so we could talk. Betty grew up in a very conservative family and had to suppress her desires until she moved out to attend college. Even then, she denied and refused to accept certain ideas. At the wedding, she was introduced to the wife of one of her college girlfriends, and that rekindled a lot of repressed desires during the days they hung out before the wedding. She told me that she felt attracted to women romantically and sexually as well as men, and she realized that she was bisexual. I told her that I was glad she finally felt safe enough to share this with me, and that it didn't change how I felt about her. It was a very emotional moment. She asked me how I felt about her exploring her sexuality now that it was out in the open. I said I was willing to explore it with her, and suggested the possibility of a threesome with another woman, so she could have that experience. She wanted to have her own experience with another woman, and felt that she couldn't do it with me present. I told her that it sounded more like cheating, and that I wasn't comfortable with it. I asked if she wanted to call off the wedding and maybe separate while she figured out what she wanted to do. She insisted that wasn't what she wanted, and that she still loved me very much, and wanted to get married, but she felt she had to explore the feelings she was having before we settled down together. I asked her if she had done anything inappropriate at the wedding, and if she had cheated on me. I asked if she had thought about someone else or had been talking to someone since she got back. She admitted that she had danced with a girl at the reception, and they kissed at the end of the night, but nothing else happened. But she denied talking to anyone or planning anything in advance. She knew this was a lot to dump on me at once, and she didn't expect an immediate answer. She just asked me to keep an open mind and keep talking about it. I couldn't promise anything, but I agreed to do some research and talk to a coworker who has an open marriage to see how they manage. I warned her that if I found out she lied or did anything behind my back, there wouldn't be a second chance and I would walk away. My coworker was very helpful and open about their relationship. My brother put me in touch with a support group that helped me come to terms with the changes in our relationship. I'm reading my second book and sat down with Betty on Thursday night to check in and talk about moving forward. I found us a couples therapist, handed her the book I'd finished, and suggested we postpone the wedding for 6 months and then decide if this is still the path we want to take. I was on a roll when she stopped me and asked if I intended to date other people, saying it never crossed her mind that I would date as well. After that, she went almost completely silent, barely answering a word when I asked her anything. The longest response I got was, "I just don't know." She's been like that for 24 hours now, like she's lost in a fog. I'm just bracing myself for the inevitable emotional fallout. I thought she'd be happy that I was considering opening up our relationship. Addition, my brother came out as gay when I was 16, and my parents were very supportive, so I grew up in a very different household from my girlfriends. Sorry, the second half of my post was written much later than the first half, and after a few drinks. Reading it back, it's clear I should have waited until this morning to post. My bad. Update. On Saturday night, the fog lifted, and things got pretty heated. She said that an open relationship was my way of punishing her and getting revenge by dating other women. She was just begging for a little grace to explore her feelings. I responded that she didn't seem to have any remorse for cheating on me, but instead expected a hall pass to do it again. I told her that our friends had told me that she asked them not to say anything about what happened at the wedding, so I might never know the full truth and would have to accept that things were worse than she was admitting. I asked if she thought it was fair to go sleep with other people while I waited by the door like a lovesick puppy, expected to wag my tail when she decided to come home and pay me some attention. Then things got worse, and we both said some hurtful things. In the end, I gave her 3 options if she wanted to move forward. Monogamy, postpone the wedding and go to couples therapy. No experimenting. When we're in a good place, continue planning the wedding with a prenup to protect me if she changes her mind and or cheats again. Open relationship, we both date whoever we want, and she can figure out her sexuality on her own. In about a year, we can see if marriage is still a good option if we're still together. Total separation, she moves out, and we each live our lives however we see fit. If when she decides she wants to be monogamous with me and I haven't moved on, we can try option 1. But that would be a fresh start, not just picking up where we left off. She decided she needed some space to think things over and would stay with friends for a few days. I told her before she left that if she cheats while she's away, don't come back except to get the rest of her stuff. This morning I got a message from her, "I'm so sorry." She didn't respond when I asked what she meant by that, and my call went to voicemail. I'm not going to reach out again, and I'll wait for her to contact me when she's ready. Update, August 18, 2024. Previously, my fiancé came out as bisexual and had hooked up with a woman at her friend's wedding. On Wednesday, Betty went to her previously scheduled therapy appointment and told her therapist what had happened between us. I'm not sure exactly what was said, but she called me on the way to her friend's house to apologize for some of the things she'd said and wanted to come home to talk. I told her to stay at her friend's house that night and think about what she wanted, and she could come home on Thursday, and we could sit down and work things out. On Thursday, we met at home and talked over dinner. We both apologized for losing our tempers and saying things that were unfair to each other. After talking with her therapist and having several conversations with her best friend over the past few days, she decided not to explore her bisexual urges. The idea of a truly open relationship where I was free to sleep with others terrified her, and getting married was more important than chasing rainbows. Her initial idea was just a free pass to see if she was missing something in life and how important that was to her. I asked her what her request for a one-night stand meant, just dating a woman or having a full-on relationship. She couldn't tell me exactly what she wanted. I said it sounded like infidelity and wasn't very fair. She agreed, and that's why she gave up on exploring those feelings. Next, she brought up the papers I'd sent to cancel the save-the-date announcements for our wedding. She said she'd been getting all kinds of calls about what happened and initially didn't know what they were talking about. She was upset that I did that without talking to her first. I reminded her that she dropped 2 grenades in my lap, coming out as bisexual and cheating on me, then took off and didn't talk to me except for the cryptic, "I'm so sorry," followed by silence. While I never said anything other than that we had issues and had to postpone the wedding, there was obviously speculation that she had cheated on me. She pivoted and said that we could still get back on track and get married next spring. No, because now when either of us is away, my mind will be back to you cheating, especially after coming out and wanting an affair to explore your sexuality. I said maybe after couples therapy, we could get to a good place again, but not by the end of the year, and it would be foolish to start planning and making financial commitments before we know if therapy will work. Also, I want a prenup before getting married to protect everything I bring into the marriage and my future retirement savings. Plus, she'd lose any equity if we bought a house. When she protested, I said if you plan to be faithful and not change your mind later, it should never be an issue. Just something to give me a little peace of mind. That's an ongoing conversation we've been having for the past few days. Betty wants to move past what happened at the wedding and proceed with our wedding. In her view, exploring her sexuality isn't worth sacrificing our relationship. For now, we're back together and planning to start counseling soon. In a moment of clarity, I realized that I rushed into accepting the idea of an open relationship to allow Betty the freedom to explore her new feelings, and now I'm not willing to consider that option. I think breaking up is a better choice, splitting up until we both figure out our future path and whether it's together or not. It's not what I want, but I also don't want to spend 3 to 5 years together only for her to change her mind one day or cheat on me. We've scheduled counseling to see what's best for us. Until we completely resolve this, we won't be getting married. I don't want to face infidelity or her wanting to prolong the marriage years down the road and then possibly divorce.
Hello everyone. My name is Peter. Welcome to the true stories being shared here. Please sit back and listen to today's story. Fiancée for telling my boyfriend 23 if funny form, it's his fault if he misses our flight, and then I'll go without him? My boyfriend and I planned a trip at the end of summer a few months ago. Last night, we were still trying to figure out how we'd get to the airport when my mom offered to drive us before she went to work. I told my boyfriend, who lives 30 minutes away from me, that he needed to be at my place no later than 6 a.m. so my mom could drive us to the airport at 6:15. He promised he'd be there around 5:45. This morning there was no sign of him until about 6:20. He told me his phone fell, and he didn't hear the alarm. By that time, my mom had to leave and could only take me if she didn't want to be late for work. I told him he should either drive himself to the airport or call an Uber. His mom decided she would drive him the hour to the airport, since he was too late for my mom to take us both. He arrived at the airport shortly after I did, and I was checking in our luggage. We got to the baggage drop-off, and he realized he didn't have his ID. His wallet was at his house, an hour away from the airport. I told him I'd go on through TSA and head to the gate. His mom was going back to get his wallet, which would obviously take some time. I told him that no matter what, I would board the flight, and that if he missed it, that was the result of his own carelessness. Then he started asking what to do if he missed it. I told him he's an adult and should figure out how to get to our destination by contacting customer service. I planned everything for this trip, from the flights to the travel arrangements. I felt that at this point, I'd done all I could to ensure a successful and smooth trip, and I didn't feel it was my responsibility to manage the fallout for him if he missed the flight. There was no refund for the airman that we split the cost of if we didn't go. Fiancée for continuing on without him? Update 4 days later. I think the trip, despite the risks and conclusions I'm about to draw at the end of this post, has opened my eyes, and I'm grateful for that. I've had a track record of misjudging and misunderstanding behavior, and I've promised myself that won't happen again. So I set boundaries for myself early. The trip began with him oversleeping, so he didn't meet me at my house to catch the ride to the airport. While it wasn't an act of cruelty in itself, it was something that had happened repeatedly on different occasions. When he finally woke up and met me at the airport, late, he discovered he didn't have his wallet. The most crucial thing to have when traveling. Wondering how someone could forget something so important, I waited for him to retrieve it, but it was futile. He called his mom, blaming her for rushing him that morning, which could have been avoided if he'd been a responsible adult, woken up on time, and packed his things the night before, and took no responsibility. Luckily, she came to his rescue. But not soon enough. He had to rebook his flight and arrive later that day. During that process, he still asked me which gate our flight was at, when the gate number was displayed in the screenshot he sent me, instead of using the information I'd already given him. I organized the entire trip, down to the transportation, flights, accommodations, and more. I handed him a small ball to carry, and he still dropped it. In dropping that ball, he failed to take responsibility for his actions. I should have known how the rest of the trip would go. During the trip, there were several instances that only reinforced the feelings I already harbored. Outbursts of anger followed by childish behavior and excuses. When confronted, only excuses and a lack of accountability followed. Everything was met with, "But I'm trying so hard. What am I doing wrong? even though the issues were directly explained. He lost his debit card, and despite my efforts to track his steps, calling businesses we visited and everything, he ran ahead of me, leaving me behind, walking the streets alone. When I explained why that upset me and was unacceptable, there were more excuses and ramblings about how he didn't mean for it to happen, but still did. While walking to different restaurants, he cursed at men who even looked at me, staring them down and nearly causing a scene. He misplaced his wallet before dinner and acted similarly, cursing, slamming things and throwing items around instead of calmly searching for his wallet. I sat there in disbelief, as this was behavior I hadn't seen before. I told him that this was unattractive and showed a lack of control and emotional maturity. More excuses followed. Perhaps there are other examples I could use, but they're slipping my mind. It was the night before departure. I was in tears. It started at the beach. We decided to go for a night swim. Everything was fine until he lost his ring in the sea. Luckily, I was right next to him, so I managed to catch it with my hand. He stepped out and threw it into the sand. Smart, right? When we finished, he got upset when I sent his mom a video of him jumping. I walked away because I didn't want to listen to it. Then he called me back and told me he'd lost his ring in the sand. We searched for the ring, meaning I was on my hands and knees while he walked around with a flashlight. I eventually found it. We began walking back to the room. I said, "Can I say something serious? Sometimes I start to feel like your mom, keeping track of your things and helping you manage the fallout." He reacted strongly, saying I didn't have to help him, that I didn't acknowledge everything he was doing, like calling Ubers and paying for everything, that I wasn't like his mom, and he didn't ask me to do anything. In anger, I told him to fuck off and walked away. Yes, I know that wasn't good, and I later apologized for my behavior. I walked up to the room alone. He begged me to talk when he got there, but I didn't want to. I took a shower and told him one thing: this trip has really made me reconsider whether I want to continue this relationship. He became frantic, begging me to talk to him, saying I didn't acknowledge all the good things he was doing, repeating himself. I told him I didn't want to talk, didn't want to be touched, and wanted to be left alone. I also apologized for my harsh words, no excuses at all. He told me I was always rude before dating. I'd been harsh when he showed up unannounced at my place, and showed other signs of emotional immaturity and disregarded my wishes. He started trying to hug me. I told him to get off me. He kept touching me as I tried to lie down on the bed, trying to cuddle and hold my hand. At this point, I started crying. I ran into the bathroom and began sobbing. I came out as he kept crying and begging me to talk to him. He started getting loud and making a scene. I ran to grab the pull-out bed from the closet to sleep on. He blocked me and pushed the bed back, telling me I didn't need it. I became more and more hysterical as I was being blocked and told him to get out of my way and leave me alone. He didn't and protested by sitting on the pull-out bed. I tore the comforter off the real bed and made a bed on the floor. He took the blankets and pillows out from under me, saying he wasn't going to let me sleep on the floor. He continued to yell in my ear, telling me to get up, that he loved me, to leave everything behind, while he kept pulling the pillow I had back. He finally left me alone on the floor. Leaving the airport in 3 hours. Honestly, I'm thinking of changing my flight. I'm still trying to figure out the logistics of breaking up, like how it might happen and when. After checking OOP on other flights. Our flight is the earliest of the day. There are others, but no confirmed seats, only standby. Related comments. Commenter: that's only going to escalate in future arguments. Get home safe and never see this man again. OP: that's troubling because the kind of anger that flared up in me is the kind that only erupted with past exes. Being cornered and having my personal space violated is something I can't handle at all. I'd say I tried to push him away, which I probably shouldn't have done, and raised my voice because I feared his yelling would get us kicked out. Our booking had a quiet hours policy. Commenter: get out of where you are. I've thought about this. The AB is under my name. I already know I can't really trust him to follow through on closing procedures, so I'm worried about being hit with a fee if he leaves something undone. Also, if I wake up now, I know he'll try to stop me from leaving. We're still on the same flight in case he makes it there on time. He's still awake now, and a Uber will be here in an hour. Commenter: You have every right to express your anger and frustration. Women are raised from a young age to be pleasant, agreeable, and keep the peace. Time for that is over. Now it's time for fuck that. Don't be nice anymore. Be blunt. Be rude if you have to. You need to get this man off of you, and you need to never buy into his "I'm trying" bullshit again. I actually told him to fuck that earlier when I told him I felt like his mom, and he said, "You didn't have to help me find the ring, I just asked for help." He said I was being rude and that he'd never talked to me that way, and that his friends told him to stay away from me because I'm always rude to him. He even called me rude for leaving the room and having the key, and he had to get someone else to let him in. I admit that I've chewed him out before dating because of his unstable emotions. He constantly texted me, and I'd say things like "leave me alone" or "you need therapy and to leave me alone." I can't take another half-baked excuse for my concerns. Commenter: If you feel unsafe, record your future conversations and send them to his mom. I just thought about this, hours later. Though I have a feeling it wouldn't change anything. The other day, when he was away from me, I told her, and she told me to be happy with him, love him, and work things out. She constantly makes excuses for him. Commenter: When I read your first post, I was worried. He seemed like a teen gamer. But on vacation, he's been so aggressive. Time to get out. Just block him on everything. The reason I said talk to his mom is BC. She's enabled his behavior his entire life. She knows what he's like. Yes. There was a recent instance when we went to a football game, and he was so aggressive. He'd been drinking, and some guy accidentally bumped into him. I was sober and believe it wasn't intentional. I witnessed the whole thing, but he swore the guy purposely slammed into him. It was a crowded game, and we were all exiting. Everyone was bumping into someone. He started aggressively checking the guy's body with extreme force. He went to the restroom, and that guy came up to me and told me that one day my boyfriend is going to run into the wrong person. It was embarrassing. I should have recorded it. Now I feel stupid. Though I have a feeling she would have definitely made excuses for him. Commenter: Why did you start dating someone who couldn't respect you even before you were dating? He wasn't like this before. The aggression is something I hadn't witnessed. Commenter: I mean the surprise visits and ignoring your wishes. What made you overlook the red flags and fall into this situation? I'm not trying to be mean. Just to understand. I guess the apologies and benefit of the doubt. A lot of people were upset that I didn't give him the benefit of the doubt in my first post. I like to give first and even second chances. I'm not perfect, and I don't expect my partner to be either. He apologized for past behavior and made some progress in areas, but clearly not in the most important ones. Commenter: Serious question. Is he an alcoholic? He's dating one person, and on one short vacation, he's acted like this. A stubborn child. Or is it just weaponized immaturity? He used to self-medicate with alcohol to cope with emotions. On one occasion, his mom had to drive to his Apple location and found him drunk, asleep in his car outside a friend's house, when he'd promised her he'd be home soon. I'm not sure if the frequency or amount of his drinking warrants an official diagnosis of alcoholism, but both his parents had issues with alcohol throughout his childhood. His mom says he's always felt like that when drinking. We don't often drink together as a couple, but when we have, this hasn't happened before. We've just clubbed and had fun. Small update. A few hours later. I'm at the airport now. When I left, he was asleep. He hasn't texted or read my messages, and his location hasn't moved, so I assume he's still asleep. I made it to the airport alone. As I boarded the plane, he texted me saying I should have woken him up so he wouldn't miss the flight. He said I should have at least woken him up since his phone was apparently on silent. He really slept through because I left while he was sleeping to get to the airport. He missed the flight. I sent him a message explaining everything and told him not to come to my place, or I'd call the cops. He's now texting my mom long paragraphs trying to explain his behavior. I told her to ignore him. Hello everyone. My name is Peter. Welcome to the true stories being shared here. Please sit back and listen to today's story. I met one of my best friends, 28th, about 2 years ago at the library, and I'm completely in love with her. The only problem is, I'm terrified she'll think I'm shallow when I finally ask her out because she used to be chubby. How do I tell her how I feel without offending her? Background. When we first met, I was in a toxic relationship with my now ex, and she was focused on studying, working, and getting back in shape, so I never really saw her romantically because of those factors. But I always thought she was a beautiful person, and a joy to be around. I'll call her Kelsey. I've shared things with her that I wouldn't even dream of telling my ex, talked for hours about anything, played board games, watched movies, gone out to restaurants, invited her to book clubs, and just included her in most aspects of my life, as she did with me, but we rarely spent time alone together. There was nothing intimate besides hugs and joking around with friends, so I never really thought of her that way. Eventually, I'd had enough of the years of verbal abuse, self-harm threats, and mind games with my ex when I started realizing that I was spending more time with Kelsey, and sometimes even forgetting about my own girlfriend because Kelsey made me happy while my ex filled me with fear. About 7 months ago, I broke up with her. 2 years ago, Kelsey was a bit chubby, and she's worked incredibly hard to get in shape, so I've been super supportive and given her advice on nutrition and fitness. She's gone from 195 to 130, but her heaviest weight was apparently 260, and you couldn't even tell she was ever that size. I'm so proud of her, and ever since my breakup, she's all I can think about, especially now that we've been spending more private time together. Her lips, her laugh, her smile, her eyes, and yes, her body is incredible. The effort she's put into losing weight, and the discipline she's maintained while working and studying, has made her even more attractive to me. She's always been there for me without me asking. She just seems to know when I need her support in some way, and I've always tried to find ways to show her that I truly appreciate her. I have a feeling she might feel the same about me, but I've led a slew of insecurities. I'm freakishly tall, people say I'm boring, I've been told I talk too much, I hate my chin, etc. Keep me from telling her how I feel. A few weeks ago, we all went to a taco place with friends, crammed together, and having a good time until a guy came up to her and offered to buy her a drink. My stomach dropped, and I immediately wanted to chase him away, but she didn't seem interested and tried to decline, which I knew was irrational because I had no right. She sweetly agreed with the encouragement of the other girls at the table, then followed him to the bar, and they started chatting. I've never felt so angry, sad, and guilty over a woman. In all the time I've known her, she's been single, except for a few dates that eventually led to nothing, which really hurt her because she hasn't dated or been intimate with anyone for years, since she's been focused on herself. Guys and girls constantly hit on her, and it always made me unreasonably upset, even before I realized I loved her because they didn't know her. So, I should have been happy when she talked to this guy and seemed to enjoy herself. She was giggling, smiling, and sharing nachos with him. I was so upset that I started to leave because I couldn't stand to watch her flirt with this guy and cause a scene. When I got home, I saw that she had sent me a goodnight text hoping I was okay. Friends had told her I wasn't feeling too hot, and she was worried when I left and told me to let her know if I needed someone to talk to. I fell in love all over again. I decided I was going to tell her how I felt because it wasn't fair to her, and keeping it inside was unhealthy since I can barely get a sentence out around her now. I asked one of the girls if she thought Kelsey might have a crush on me after explaining why I wanted to know, and she confessed that she did, yes, but Kelsey had told her she didn't think I'd ever date her because she used to be fat, she wasn't in my league, and I probably just saw her as another sister. I was devastated that I'd given her that impression and almost couldn't believe it, but it made sense why she would think that. I've never made any moves to get close to her, and I'm a pretty fit guy myself, and my ex was super skinny. I'm terrified of making a move because she's lost so much weight that she might think I'm only attracted to her now, because she's no longer fat, and that my feelings are only skin deep. She means so much to me, and I don't want to mess this up. Most of my friends say she'd understand and wouldn't take it personally because she knows me. Some say she'd think I just want to hit on her because she's hot now. My sisters think I should tread lightly because she might feel like she's being used. How do I approach this without coming off as shallow and potentially losing her respect for her? Thanks, y'all. Sorry this is insanely long, I'm stressing. TLDR, I'm in love with my formerly chubby best friend, but don't want her to think I'm only into her now, because she's not chubby anymore. Related comments. Throw RA 7541. Honestly, I think the best way to handle this is just to tell her it's not because she lost weight. I was fat myself, and if someone who knew me before started flirting with me now, I'd immediately think their attraction was only skin deep, and that would upset me, and obviously, if I asked them, they'd deny it, so you bringing it up yourself sounds perfect. Mountain-like, I'm sensitive to it as well. However, what does sound like the truth, that you didn't really care about her until you were fully detached from the previous person, is something I'd be very receptive to as well. You can tell her you find self-improvement attractive without caring about the weight. Fortunately, she seems like a good enough friend that you can be upfront. The short version is to tell her exactly what you told us, why you find her attractive without going into the physical details you like. There will be time for that later. OP, thanks so much. You're right, I was so miserable with my ex, and it affected my mental state so much that I really had nothing left except to get through the day. Example, BPD. ZSCOT 3564. Say you always liked her, but were shy. I have a question. You said she was chubby, and I guess you weren't attracted to her. If you start dating her and she feels comfortable around you, she might gain weight. A lot of women gain weight in relationships because they feel comfortable around the guy. Guys gain weight for the same reason. So, my question is, if you start dating and she gets chubby again, will you break up with her or post and ask us if you should break up? If so, it sounds like you love her looks more than her as a person. Also, maybe you shouldn't date her if you're going to break up if she gets chubby again. She doesn't deserve to be treated that way. OP, thanks for your input. I realize I didn't present this well in the first post, but I've always found her attractive. She was focused on herself and didn't really want to date, so I assumed that also meant me, and I was constantly trying to get away from my ex without letting her harm herself. Her weight was never an issue for me. I was just happy to support her the way she supported me. Plus, she had some health concerns that forced her to be more disciplined in maintaining her weight. So even if she did gain it back, I'd still love her and never hurt her that way. But I'd still encourage her to keep it off for her health if that makes sense. Update, 1 week later. Y'all, I did not expect this to blow up like this. It's on TikTok, and now I'm even more embarrassed, but it was so worth it. I'll also respond to some comments to clear up a few things. TLDR at the bottom. After going through and rereading all these comments and messages, I realized I was overthinking everything, making it harder than it needed to be, and came to the conclusion that I didn't need to bring up such a sensitive subject just to tell her how I felt in the first place, especially since she hadn't directly confessed to me. I just needed to tell her and hurry up, the rest would follow. I texted her the next morning to ask if we could grab a bite, just the two of us, sometime next weekend. Had something important to tell her, and that was true. I ended up stupidly worrying her with how I phrased it. She thought I was moving, but she was super excited and told me she missed me too. She'd be free that night if I was down, and the day after. I started to panic because it came sooner than expected, but that night turned out to be one of the best moments of my life. I'm still way too embarrassed to show her the entire first post, but I'm prepared to do so if she questions my intentions. To keep this short, I'll skip the small talk, but we met up at her favorite tea place, caught up for a bit, and then she actually asked me what I needed to tell her. It took me a while to get it all out clearly because I was trying not to stutter like an idiot, but I told her most of what I'd posted originally. I'd had feelings for her even before my breakup and didn't know how to say it for so many reasons. I told her the important ones, but she'd always been on my mind. I've always loved how kind, caring, thoughtful, dedicated, and all-around amazing she is besides being so beautiful. She made me realize sacrificing my happiness to keep someone who hated me alive was unhealthy, that I deserved to be happy, and I'm happiest when I'm with her. No one brightens my day like she does. She looked absolutely stunned for a moment after I finished talking and was slightly tearing up at this point, but she went on to tell me that she'd felt the same way since we met and had a bit of a feeling I liked her. However, she didn't think I'd want to date her because we were best friends, and with the damage my ex had done, it meant I probably needed time to heal, but she was so happy I actually had the courage to tell her how I felt since she would never have told me. So we both laughed awkwardly a bit. We talked a bit more, and I was thrilled, relieved, and extremely nervous when the mood immediately shifted to something new and intimate, but I finally asked her out on a real date, whenever she was ready, as I do a lot for her. In short, a lot has happened since then. She's now my girlfriend. We're taking things extremely slowly. Our second date is in a few days, and I'm kicking myself for not telling her sooner. She hasn't brought up her weight, and I'll 100% show her the post if she does. Now I'm actually really glad I didn't start with that. I'm so grateful to every one of you for your feedback, encouragement, support, and couldn't have done it without you. Serious rock stars here. TLDR, I didn't bring up her weight when telling her my feelings. She's now my girlfriend, she hasn't brought up the topic, and if she does, I'll show her the first post.